Hello, my name is Professor John Benjamin. This is West Virginia Wesleyan College, and this is Game Design. All right, so today we're going to be talking about collisions and how to cause damage to an actor. You can go ahead and start a basic first-person project if you like, or you could just simply open up any first-person project that we've been working with. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and drag a cube actor out here, like so. And remember, yours don't have to be magenta. I just had mine set to that so they're easier to see. And then I'm going to go ahead and drag out a sphere. So, and I'm going to put it above my cube. Okay, and right now, if I have the sphere selected and I go look over in my details panel, you can see it's static. It's not moving. So I'm going to set it to moving. And I'm going to go ahead and say simulate physics. And I'm going to move it up a little bit, like that. Okay, so if we hit play, it'll fall. And you can shoot it if you want. If I select the cube, and we go down below physics, and we come into collision, the collision presets are for default, which is it has collision. But we're going to change that. We're going to say custom, and then we're going to change collision enable to no collision. All right, and then we're just going to go ahead and play. And then you can see that the ball falls into there. And we can shoot the ball, and we can walk in there as well. And so now this is just like a non-existent object, if you will. And so there's lots of circumstances where you would want a faux object to be there, like a faux door, and you can still walk through it. And so that's how we turn on or off collisions. Typically, all objects that we create, all static meshes, have a default collision, but you can change those parameters. All right, so go ahead and hit escape, and we'll come out here. And now let's talk about how we can create an enemy actor that causes damage when we collide with it. All right, so let's create an enemy actor. So to do that today, I'm going to go ahead and create a cone. I'm going to drag a cone out here. And then I want it to look a little bit more like an enemy. So let's go ahead and add a component. We'll just go ahead and add a component sphere. All right, move that up. And now it looks a little bit more like a pawn in a game or something of that nature. And I think let's go ahead and delete this so it's not distracting. I'm just going to delete that ball in that cube. All right, so there is our enemy. Give it an appropriate name. So right now it's cone. I'm going to call it enemy. And also, we want to create a place where we can find our content. So go ahead and let's create a my content folder. So I'm going to right-click down here in the content browser, say new folder, and call this my content. Okay, now we can select our cone and say add blueprint. And we've got to make sure that it's going to go into our content folder, my content. Hit OK and select. All right, here we have the cone. Make this a little bigger. All right, and let's go into the event graph. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is create an event hit node. So just go ahead and right-click and type in event hit. And we have several types of parameters or types of hit events. Other is just a collision, and anything that collides with this actor is going to receive damage. So we're going to start there, but we need to apply damage. So I'm going to go ahead and drag out the other here from the other pin, and I'm going to say apply damage. All right, and see when you drag out the wire from the pin, and then type, it automatically draws the appropriate connections, particularly the execution pin, which is important to remember. All right, and then we just want to go ahead and make sure that we get a break hit result. So there's a result when we are hitting. So we're just going to say break hit result. Okay. Notice that we have a base damage. So right now, the damage applied is 0. So we want to apply 10 damage to any actor that collides with this. So let's change that to 10 and just hit return. That's important. Okay, so your event graph should look something like this. And let's compile and save and close that out. Okay, so that's our enemy. Anything that collides with the enemy is going to have damage applied. But now we want to have some blueprints applied to our actor so we know what's happening and we can set parameters for how much damage is going to be applied. All right, so to do that, we're going to find our actor, the main character, and you can go look in your world outliner. All right, and take a look around, and you're looking for the first person character right here. Okay, and the easiest way to open up the blueprints is to just come over here to type, and we'll say Edit First Person Character Blueprints. All right, there we have it. And if you zoom out, you can see that there's a lot of blueprints already applied to this actor, but we're going to come over to an empty area over here and create some of our own. All right, so the very first thing is we're going to create an event node for any damage. All right, so we're just going to type in any damage. Okay, let's zoom in there. All right, so the event, any damage. So now we're going to create several float variables. So let's come over to our variables and create a new one. We're going to call this one health. All right, and then we need to change it from a Boolean to a float. All right, drag that right out into your event graph, and we want to have a set health. So we want to set the health to 100. Oop, that's 1,000. All right, so that's how much health this character is going to start off with. All right, and now we're going to drag out a get health, so that just determines the health, and then we're going to have a float minus float to subtract health every time damage is caused. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and right click here, and we're just going to say float minus float. There it is, and we're going to say 10. That's how much damage we want to have subtracted. Okay, so here's the damage, and it's going to subtract 10 from the health, which will start at 100, like so. Okay, and so that's great. 100 or 10 health will be subtracted every time we collide with the enemy actor, but we won't know. So we need to do a print string, which will print the numbers onto the screen so we know what's happening. All right, so let's do that. So we're going to say print, and print string will come right up there, and this is a print string. All right, and now what we want to do is when the health is subtracted from 100, we want it to print and tell us how much that is. All right, and then of course we need to connect our execution pins here, like so. All right, and then to kind of go over that once again, the event, which will be a collision event, will cause any damage when we collide, and that will subtract 10 from our 100 health here, and then that will print out that information on the screen so we know how much health we're losing. So let's go ahead and hit compile and save. I'm just going to shrink this down a little bit and move it so we can kind of see it working here. Oh, and there's one other thing I think I forgot to do, is we have to enable hit events for our actor. So right now I have my first person character selected. We want to go ahead and say simulation generates hit events. All right, there we go. All right, let's just do another compile and save and play. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and collide with this actor, and you can see every time I collide, it's subtracting. You can see it working down there. It's subtracting 10 from my health. So a couple of things you'll notice. It's subtracting a lot. So what's happening right now is we have it set to subtract 10 points. It's defaulting to every frame. This is running at probably 30 frames per second. So every second we're losing 300 health. So we need to kind of bring that down a little bit. So what we want to do is just every time we touch the enemy, we're only going to reduce our health by 10. Okay, so let's hit escape, and let's add those parameters to our event graph. First thing we're going to do is we're just going to add a delay. And so we can do that. Remember, we can click and drag from the execution pin. Ooh, pardon me. And I'm just going to say a delay. All right, let's just say 0.5 seconds. We need to do a do once. And so that in addition to the delay. So it's only one time, one event each time we touch it. So let's do up here, we'll say do once. All right, so there's going to be a delay when we first touch it at 0.5 seconds. Go to do once, and then we're going to have our execution pin. We're going to break it from here. So I'm going to right click on our event any damage execution pin, and we're going to say break link to health. And so now we're going to link that to do once. So now what we have happening here is every time we collide with the enemy, there'll be a 0.5 second delay, and 10 points will be subtracted. And that'll only happen once. And then until then, we move away and then touch it again. Compile and save. And let's just make this smaller so we can see it. And hit play. Okay, I'm going to go up to my actor here. And you can see minus 10 go down to 90, minus 80, minus 70. So it's only when it only does it once, and then there's a small delay. All right, but now what's happening is I get down to 0, and it's just going to go into the negative. All right, so what I want to happen is I don't want negative health. If you have negative health, that means you're dead. So we want to destroy the character. Okay, back to our event graph. We're going to have to add a less than equal to float. So let's go ahead and click here, and we're going to say float and less than equal to float. So what we want to have happen now is when the amount of damage or health is 0 or less than 0, then the enemy will be destroyed. We're going to have to create a branch because we don't want to have the enemy to be destroyed immediately. We want to have it be destroyed only when it gets less than to equal to 0. So let's go ahead and create a branch. Okay. And so now we're going to take the health here, and if it's less than equal to 0, I'm going to break this link. If it's true, we'll destroy the actor. If it's false, we want to go and have the print string just tell us that it's going to be subtracted. All right, so remember, what we did here is if the health is less than equal to 0, and if that condition is true, the player will be destroyed. If it's not true, then it's going to print the string with the delay and one time over and over. All right, now it looks a little wild, so if you want to, you can try to tidy this area up a little bit so it looks a little neater. Okay, so we're going to hit compile and save and make that a little smaller so we can see it in action. All right, we're going to hit play. And as I run into this actor, it's going to subtract 10 each time. If I keep tapping it, and then when I get to 0, the game just ends. And so it looks like it's just freezing, but we haven't had any other parameters to say what happens when it ends. So right now the game just will end. It'll just be that's the last screen. And you can just hit escape to stop that. Okay. Thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you next time.